back to those of you who were here earlier. Can you just check before we go into public session, can you just check that your mobiles are switched off? They do interfere with the broadcasting equipment, and this is being broadcast live on UPC channel 801, and so if you do have an iPad or a telephone, they will interfere, and as a result we won't be able to use the broadcast. I'd like to welcome everybody back to today's third session on the subcommittee on the referendum on the Intergovernmental Treaty on Stability, Coordination and Governance in the European and Monetary Union. In today's session, we're focusing on the views of party leaders. We've already heard this morning from Deputy Joe Higgins and Deputy Micheál Martin, and this afternoon we're hearing from Eamon Gilmore, TD, who's the Taoiseach and also the leader of the Labour Party. Taoiseach, you're very welcome here today. Would you like to give us your opening remarks, please?
Thank you, Chairperson. I last had the privilege of meeting with the Joint Committee on European Affairs in connection with the Stability Treaty in late January, about 10 days before the negotiations were concluded. The debate that we had then was very useful to me, to the Taoiseach, and to the Irish negotiating team in those crucial final days. On behalf of the Government, I want to thank you and all the members of this subcommittee for your excellent work before and since Easter. Your programme of work began within days of the announcement of the referendum, and you have ensured that this vital issue for Ireland has been thoroughly debated from all perspectives. No time has been lost. I'd like also, through you, Chairman, to convey my thanks to your many guest speakers for taking the time to debate the issues here. This week, the bill to amend the Constitution will be debated in the Dáil before moving on to the Shannon. Next week, the referendum campaign will be fully underway. This government and the parties in government are going to approach it with a level of energy and determination not seen for years in European referendum campaigns. I am determined that the campaign and the debate will focus, as it has done here in this subcommittee, that is on the Stability Treaty itself, its context and its contents, what it's for, what it means for the Irish people. While I've always said that it's not the solution to all our problems, I am fully confident in its merits for Ireland and will outline them here today. What we mustn't lose sight of is the context in which we're asking our people to vote yes or no on the 31st of May. Where did this treaty come from? Why is it important for Europe, the Eurozone and for Ireland? We know all too well what happened here in Ireland, the double whammy of a collapse in tax receipts, opening up a huge and unsustainable deficit, coupled with a major banking collapse that had to be confronted and managed. Our crisis was dramatic, real and unfortunately very, very human in terms of job losses and personal sacrifices in wages, tax and other costs. We might have been in some ways alone in terms of the scale of our crisis, but we were not alone in Europe in having one. There's no need in this well-informed setting to rehearse other stories, but one thing was clear. The euro itself as a currency was under serious strain, especially at the end of last year. Larger and previously invincible economies were in the firing line. For us in Ireland, with our exports leading our national economic comeback, the last thing we needed was a problem with our currency. The last thing the Irish people needed was that fear everyone had last year that the money in their pocket and in their bank accounts might be somehow devalued or even worthless in some sort of euro collapse. That was what the debate was like just a few months ago, and I have to say that we're not fully out of the woods yet. The European Union, and within it the Eurozone, moves slowly and imperfectly, as we all know. That's the price we pay for important democratic checks and balances in how it operates. And yet, despite its imperfections, we now have a permanent bailout fund. We're putting in place early warning systems. The ECB, while always acting independently, is acting, and we're retrofitting proper financial regulation and capital requirements onto Europe's banks. This mirrors much of what is happening here at home in Ireland in terms of our economic adjustment programme and our restructuring of the banking sector. More importantly still, perhaps, this building of a crisis prevention toolkit is accompanied with a renewed emphasis on growth, jobs and social cohesion at a European level. An agenda for growth was agreed at the same time as the treaty. This is no accident, and Ireland was very much to the forefront of those demanding that parallel growth agenda. The Stability Treaty has been negotiated and agreed as part of this toolkit and is a vital statement at the level of an international treaty that those signing it would commit to a stable euro and to good housekeeping with their national budgets. And in doing this, the stated purpose, and I'm quoting Article 1 of the treaty directly here, is to support, I quote, the achievement of the European Union's objectives for sustainable growth, employment, competitiveness and social cohesion. That's the context in which this important treaty was agreed. It's the context in which this government signed it and is now recommending it to the Irish people. We would never have done so if we didn't believe that it was in our best interest. So in simple plain English, what does the treaty mean for Ireland? It is about the stability of the euro currency, the money that each of us earn, spend, and if we get the chance to do so, save. As I just said, the euro was believed to be under serious threat late last year. Thankfully, it is more stable today, but we need this treaty among the other toolkit measures to copper fasten that stability. It is about Ireland at the heart of the Eurozone and telling our investors and job creators that we're remaining firmly at that heart. A positive vote will keep us in the Eurozone mainstream. This isn't just the government's view. It has been said in the last 2 weeks by groups ranging from the IFA, representing our food producers, who are at the core of our export growth, to the Small Firms Association, who represent our local small business employers and entrepreneurs. It's about funding our vital public services, such as social welfare and education. When the EU IMF programme ends next year, the borrowing needed should come as normal again from the markets as we intend. But if it can't, we need to access the insurance policy that is the ESM. And to get access to the ESM, we need to ratify this treaty. That is a fact, and I want to hear some real answers from treaty opponents as to where exactly the money will come from, if it can't even come from the ESM. I want to hear from them how it would be helpful for returning to the normal markets to have us blocked from the ESM. As I said earlier, it's about a framework across the Eurozone for doing what we're doing here in Ireland anyway in terms of good housekeeping, getting our deficit and debt in sustainable shape so that when government spends, it spends less on servicing debt and more on vital public services and job incentives. I'll tell you too what the Stability Treaty isn't. Above all, it isn't, as one participant has tried to say, a trigger for 166 billion in immediate cuts across Europe, or up to 6 billion here in Ireland alone in 2015. Estimates like that are arrived at by cutting fast and loose with numbers. The fact is that structural policies by government have real impact and can change any estimates a lot between now and 2015 and then beyond. So drawing a firm conclusion now does not work. I might suggest, however, that what the treaty opponents do effectively favour is a scenario where we still spend more than we take in taxes or other revenues and then can't borrow the difference, not from the ESM and almost certainly not from the markets either. That difference is our deficit, something which we are currently reducing on a gradual basis, but which would need near immediate cutting to zero if we couldn't borrow. So let me spell out exactly what would that mean this year, for example. 8.6% of GDP in further cuts and tax increases in one go, which would mean 13.7 billion euro. One might argue that this is doomsday debating. Indeed, any cut like that would simply wreck any economy. But if one cuts off the funding sources of last resort, where does this borrowing come from? Frankly, to argue someone will step in from somewhere is not good enough. In so many other ways, this cuts or austerity argument isn't grounded in reality. Even within the strict enough strictures around the EU IMF programme, we hope to conclude on time next year. We have flexibilities which allowed the government to make changes such as restoring the minimum wage and earmarking funds for jobs incentives. Nothing in this treaty changes exactly how or what we tax or how we spend. But I remain focused on the treaty's merits rather than any false claims or exaggerations from its opponents. Once again, Chairman, the Stability Treaty is about A, the stability of the euro, the currency we're paid in, spend in, and if we can, save in. B, it's about ensuring investor confidence in Ireland, especially by job creators. C, it's an insurance policy in terms of access to the ESM Assistance Fund if needed. And D, it's good housekeeping regarding Ireland's budgets and all EU countries' budgets so public money can go to public services and jobs incentives rather than to servicing debt. It's not pretty, and I challenge anyone to show me a treaty that is, but I'm convinced of its merits and will campaign hard in favour of it. On the 31st of May, ratification will be the people's choice, and with that in mind, I am determined that the Government will do everything possible to ensure that they are accurately and fairly informed between now and then. As committee members know, a key element of this will be a document going to every household containing the treaty text and some short explanatory information. We will also have an online presence which I hope will go live later this week. I look forward very much to the debate and the campaign, as I'm sure we all do. The economic context, both in Europe and here in Ireland, has never been more critical, and as I set out at the outset, we are assembling a toolkit to stabilise the euro, grow our economies sustainably, make them into engines for job creation. We need Ireland to be at the heart of those efforts, and voting for this treaty will help us achieve that. Thank you, Chairman, and I'm happy to debate the issues and answer questions. Well, first of all, can I thank the three members of the committee who have contributed. First of all, thank you, Senator Layden, for your kind remarks about our conference in Galway. And then you made reference to the protests which took place there. I think I want to say, in fairness, the vast majority of those who came to protest in Galway last Saturday came to protest peacefully and did do so. There was a minority who engaged in violent activity, and I must say I'm disappointed that the organisers of the protest, in particular those Dáil deputies who were involved in the organisation of the protest, have to date, it seems to me, not dissociated themselves from that violence or condemned it, and I would again ask them to do so. With regard to the date, the 31st of May, the date that has been set for the referendum was 65 days from the time that we actually decided that we would have a referendum. This is a standalone proposition. It's not as complex as previous and as lengthy as previous European referenda. The French election or any other election is not a factor as a country. We have to decide whether we want to ratify this ourselves or not, and we have to make up our own minds as to whether this proposition is good for this country. It's a matter for other countries to decide how they respond to it. As I understand the position that has been, and I'm conscious of the fact that there is an election campaign underway in France, but as I understand the position of the Socialist Party candidate in the presidential election, it is very much around the idea of adding to the treaty a jobs and growth agenda. And may I say that that is something, in fact, that has already been agreed. And when Ireland was involved in negotiating this treaty, and if you remember, if you think back to the latter part of last autumn, for example, there was a lot of talk at that stage about a treaty and a treaty on its own. Our position as a government, and we succeeded in persuading, along with other member states as well who had a similar position to us, but we did succeed in persuading colleagues in the European Council that there should be a jobs and growth agenda which would go hand in hand with this treaty. So I think it's important, first of all, that we don't see this treaty, and we don't claim that the Stability Treaty is the be-all and end-all of everything that needs to be done to bring stability to the European economy, to get it to grow again, to bring stability to Europe, but it is an essential part of the toolkit that is required, and the jobs and growth agenda has to go hand in hand with that. Deputy Dooley welcomed the online presence, and I expect that the stabilitytreaty.ie website will be up online later this week. I agree that nothing can be taken for granted, and it is the view of the government that we have a responsibility when we negotiate on behalf of the people of this country, and we negotiate here a draft international treaty. We have an obligation as a government and a duty as a government to explain what it is we have negotiated so that people can make up their decision on it. And that is why we have decided to make information available, to circulate a copy of the treaty text to every home in the country. That will be taking place, we hope, in the early part of May, and will with an explanatory document with it. It is our intention, the report of the Referendum Commission, this was the commission that was established. As you know, there's a separate commission. Every time we have a referendum, there's a separate Referendum Commission established to look after that. The Referendum Commission, which was responsible for the 2 referenda that were held in conjunction with the presidential election last October, has reported to government. It is intended to publish that report, and I understand from the Minister for the Environment, who has line responsibility for it, that will be done shortly. I think we do need to bear in mind that that was a report on 2 referenda that were held in conjunction with a very high-profile presidential elections. And as you recall, there was criticism of the fact that people who went out to vote perhaps didn't, mainly because I suppose it was coupled with the presidential election. There were 2 referenda on the same day. I think there are probably lessons to be learned from that. On this occasion, there's one proposition, and it's not being held in conjunction with an election. Deputy McLaughlin, well, first of all, Ireland has a long and a very honourable tradition of honouring international treaties that we are a party to. So, if the people of Ireland ratify the treaty in the referendum, and what the proposition that has been put to the people entails is, first of all, seeking their approval to ratify the treaty, first of all, and secondly then to make it clear that the legislative measures that would be taken arising from its ratification would be in compliance with the Constitution, then clearly it is our intention that the terms of the treaty will apply, and we will honour them. There are pieces of legislation, and you've referred to them. There are 3 pieces of legislation which I suppose relate to the treaty. There's a piece of legislation amending the European Communities Act, which is from my own department, which is largely around definitions and so on. There's the ESM treaty, the legislation to ratify the ESM treaty, and there's also the Fiscal Responsibility Bill. All of those pieces of legislation will be published in advance of the referendum, but it is not intended to take them through the House prior to the referendum. And I think it's only reasonable that we put the question about the ratification of the treaty to the people and let them make their decision one way or another on it. Let me say, in relation to the points you made about the issue of social Europe, the Labour Party, as you said, has always been committed to the concept of a social Europe, a Europe that's democratic, that's fair, a Europe where the rights of its citizens and its people are protected and enhanced. And it has to be said, over the decades, that many of the progress, a lot of the progress that has been made in this country in areas relating to the rights of women, for example, introduction of equal pay, equality legislation, legislation in many cases which protect the rights of workers, a lot of legislation which protects the rights of consumers, certainly a lot of legislation which protects the environment, has found its origins in the European Union. And I think that this country has been better for the fact that such legislation has been brought forward. But of course, any such legislation, the improvement of the living standards of people in Europe, ensuring that there are jobs, ensuring that there's good quality incomes, depends in turn on Europe being a successful economy. And we have a shared, I think we have a shared responsibility in Europe to ensure that the European economy is successful. I expect we'll pick up on some of these points. I see the chair giving me signals that I'm running over time, but I'd be glad to come back on some of those points.
He gets to do that to you, Paul.
Sorry?
It's the one opportunity that he gets to do that to you.
Oh, no, he doesn't regularly. Okay. First of all, let me take up the point made by Deputy Durkan. I think it's important that we draw a distinction between what's in this treaty and really what it's about. I think we can all have differing views about how effective the European institutions are, differing views about political directions at any given time in Europe. This treaty actually isn't about that. This treaty is essentially about the euro, and I think we've got to be absolutely clear about that. Nobody is arguing that it's going to correct all of the difficulties that there are in the functioning of the European Union itself or its institutions or whatever. This treaty is essentially about the euro. And I think, as Senator White said, it is critically, I think, about the issue of jobs. Let me put it this way to you. A lot of the work that I do as Minister for Foreign Affairs and Trade is meeting with financial opinion makers, potential investors, the kind of people that influence investment decisions in relation to Ireland. There may be people at government level, there may be people who work in business or whatever. And one of the things that I've been struck by over the past number of months has been the degree to which they have stopped asking me about the health of the Irish economy. I mean, to some extent, I think they've already got the message that the Irish economy is making a recovery, that there's, that there are positive things happening. The big question that they keep asking me about, and you can almost see the kind of what's going through their minds in assessing whether or not they're going to make an investment decision to invest in Ireland. They keep asking me about Europe and about the euro. That is the principal concern now. North America, I met a lot of people in Canada, for example, during the St. Patrick's Day events. Previously, the United States at the Clinton investment event. I was in Japan and Korea on trade missions. And no matter where it is, one of the first questions that will always be raised is, how do you see the future of Europe? How do you see the future of the euro? And while there is uncertainty about the euro, while these people who make the investment decisions, who make the decision, are they going to locate in Europe at all, and if they locate in Europe, are they going to locate in Ireland? The big question that's going through their minds is, where's the euro going to be? So getting stability for the euro is absolutely essential if we are going to land the investment decisions that are going to ensure that jobs are created here. And I agree very much with you that there is a jobs agenda in relation to that. Deputy Donoghue's question about, two questions essentially, I suppose. First of all, about the issue of conditionality. Well, first of all, let me just say about the ESM, because I think I've been, people who argue that there shouldn't be an ESM, I mean, I actually don't, I can't understand this argument at all. I mean, the European Stability Mechanism is essentially the member states within the Eurozone coming together and, if you like, putting in place a pool of money, pot of money, that will be available if a particular state gets into financial trouble, and that will be used to stabilise the euro. It seems to me that by any standards, that's a good thing and a good idea. And people who argue against such a fund being put in place, really, I can't square that with, I mean, how they see. I mean, this is a safety net for the euro and for members of the eurozone. And if you have a pot of money, or you have a fund, which is essentially what this is, a permanent fund, a stability fund for the euro, it's inevitable that there's going to be conditions attached to accessing that fund. I don't know of anybody who lends people, would lend anybody money without attaching some conditions to it. And the first and basic condition that's always attached if you're lent money from somebody is that you repay it. And it's not unreasonable that the European Stability Mechanism would have conditions attached, including in this case, that you're signed up to implement the rules of the euro through the Stability Treaty. I agree also with you, and you picked up on the point that I made in respect of that we're not out of the woods yet. I think it is fair to say that, as compared to the end of last year, I think the position in relation to the euro is a lot more stable now than it was then. But we are still seeing some signs of which would cause us some worry. And that is all the more reason that we need to put in place the measures that are needed to secure the euro. And that leads me on to Senator Riley's question, which is, what else is in the toolkit? What the treaty does basically is it copper fastens the rules that are already agreed for the euro. That's essentially what it does. Secondly, it provides a mechanism whereby those rules have got to be enforced and got to be honoured by states. One of the problems, I think, which has led to the crisis that we have now had is the degree to which some states, if you like, wandered away from some of the rules surrounding the euro. And what the treaty does is says that can't happen again. So that helps to provide security for the euro. In relation to what else is in the toolkit, there is, as I said, the jobs and growth agenda that the Taoiseach put on the agenda of the European Council. Within that jobs and growth agenda are the measures to address the issue of youth unemployment, the measures to ensure that there is funding made available for small and medium-sized businesses, and the completion of the single market in areas like the digital area. In addition to that, there is also the measures that have been taken, steps that have been taken by the European Central Bank to provide additional money or make additional money available for the European banking system. I think there has been quite a degree of progress made on that over the course of the past number of months. And there's the firewalls that are being built as part to protect the euro. So it has to be seen, I think, as part of that package. But it is an essential part of it. To say the rules surrounding the euro, they're going to be honoured and they're going to be implemented uniformly across the eurozone. Secondly, that sends out a very clear message to investors that the euro is safe. Thirdly, we then have the European Stability Mechanism, which is as I said, the safety net and the fund that's available for us, and then we. Coupled with what's in the treaty itself, we pursue a growth agenda within Europe as a whole.
Okay.
Well, first of all, as I understand it, the Troika's decision during the course of this review not to meet with opposition parties was their decision. It's not a decision that's influenced by the government, and I want to make it absolutely clear that the government has no objection whatever to the Troika meeting with opposition leaders. I do understand, however, that that there may be a concern that they don't want to become. They're conscious of the fact that there is a referendum and don't want to become involved in the, if you like, the political debate involved in that. But as far as the government is concerned, we have no objection to the Troika meeting, whoever they want to be. That's entirely a matter for them, and no objection in particular to the meeting with opposition parties. You invite me to make just a couple of concluding remarks. I think the first one is. I think we have to see this in the context of what we're trying to do in terms of bringing about economic recovery. 12 months ago, we were certainly in a very, very deep economic crisis. We have made some progress during the course of the past year. I think one of the things that has been holding us back somewhat, and has certainly, I think, influenced the potential for the Irish economy to grow faster than it has been the uncertainty around the euro. It is in our interests that we get that settled and that there is stability around the euro. It's important, first of all, for the currency itself, for the money in our pocket, but it's also important for investors, those who create jobs, to have that certainty so that they can make investment decisions. I think it is also important because we do need to deal with our debt problem and with our deficit problem, and we would have to do that anyway. And part of the way of dealing with that is to get the economy to grow. And of course that growth in turn is dependent on how stable the euro is. So for all of those reasons, it is in our own interest that we ratify the treaty. I hope that over the course of the next number of weeks that we'll have good debate, that it will continue to focus, as indeed it has done here today, on what is in the treaty, and that people make an informed decision on the 31st of May.
Taoiseach, thank you very much for coming in today and for presenting to us, and thank you for your staff as well for coming along. I think we very much enjoyed the engagement and the frank and open nature of the question and answer session, so thanks again. Deputies and Senators, we are now going to suspend the session until 10 to 4 when we'll be joined by Deputy Catherine Murphy, who will be outlining her position. I'm going to say 10 to 4 so that we've got a few minutes. Okay, thank you. The meeting is now suspended.